from entering the country has been made at the Conservative Party conference. That's as the latest figures show more than 537 people were intercepted trying to cross the Channel yesterday. The Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, told the party faithful he's working with international allies to stop the boats.
I've written to all of our ambassadors, all of our high commissioners, and I've instructed each and every one of them to do even more work with the countries in which they represent the UK to help stop the abhorrent trafficking of human lives across the English Channel. Be in no doubt at all, our diplomats will redouble their effort to bring an end to this terrible, terrible injustice.
Earlier, the Tory party chairman used his opening address to take a swipe at Labour.
I have these available at the Conservative shop outside for just £16.99, also online.
Waving flip-flops featuring Sir Keir Starmer's face, Greg Hands mocked the Labour leader, suggesting he doesn't have a clear position on issues affecting the country. His comments came just hours after the Prime Minister refused to commit to tax cuts. Rishi Sunak said his focus is on halving inflation because it impacts the poorest the most. On a visit to Burnley, the PM insisted his approach is deeply conservative, saying it's a Thatcherite policy.
The best tax cut that we can deliver right now is to halve inflation. Now, that's something that I'm deeply committed to. It's the first of my 5 priorities. Why? Because that's how we can help people with the cost of living. We just want to put more money in people's pockets. And the best way to do that right now is through halving inflation. And that is a deeply conservative approach to this. And my colleagues understand that. This is what Margaret Thatcher did.
Tax is set to be a key issue over the next 4 days, with more than 30 Tory MPs promising not to support the autumn statement if it contains any hikes. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting says they're right to question the PM's tax policies, including inheritance tax.
After 13 years of Conservative government, we end up in a position where even its own MPs are having to campaign against their unfair tax policies. And I think Conservative MPs are quite right to say, how is it that we've got the worst, highest tax burden in 70 years? They should also be asking Rishi Sunak why, instead of thinking about cutting taxes for working people, he's looking to give himself and other super rich people a tax break by cutting a tax that affects 4% of people in this country, a tax cut that would earn him personally £300 million.
A key part of the Windsor framework has come into effect for Northern Ireland, with a new system introduced to move products from Great Britain. Goods which are being transported to the EU will use a red lane, which includes customs declarations, while those bound for Northern Ireland will use a green lane with minimal paperwork and no checks. This is GB News across the UK, on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and joining me tonight to go through the most worthy stories in Monday's newspapers are 2 of the most incisive and profound political thinkers out there who also make their living telling jokes about their sexual organs. It's Paul Cox and Adam Bloom. How are you guys? How are your weekends?
Oh, good, thanks, Josh. Busy gigging around the country.
Oh, yeah, your gigs. You booked some gigs, don't you?
Yes. Have I booked you?
Not yet. No, have you done his gigs?
No.
Interesting, yeah. Look how you're suddenly nice to him. You're just like, oh, wait a second.
I've had a good week. I've just found out I've got genital organs.
Oh, well, congratulations. And you're looking particularly muscly, if I may say. You're definitely the most muscly headliner.
Am I really?
Yes.
Who's the second most? You?
No, it's Paul.
It cannot be.
Right, let's take a quick look through Monday's front pages. The Daily Mail, mobile phones ban in schools. The Times, doctor handed £7,900 to cover one strike shift. Guardian, Tory factions threaten to wreck Sunak's conference. Mirror, do the right thing, PM. Express, Hunt vows to turn the screw on work shy. And finally, the Daily Star, our nuts in crisis. And those are your front pages. Starting with the Monday's Guardian, Paul, what do they have on the front page?
Tory factions threaten to wreck Sunak's conference. Of course, the Conservative conference is underway now, and this isn't news, this is The Guardian. However, what they have said is that Rishi Sunak is struggling to hold together his fractured party at the first day of the Conservative conference as it saw attempts at a united front collapse into rival groups battling over tax, culture wars and the fight for Tory leader. Well, of course, if you look closely at this, the fight for Tory leader, what they're saying is Rishi might not last, therefore who have we got to look at? And we've got to look at Braverman, we've got to look at Patel, apparently, Kemi Badenoch, and of course Cleverly. I'm not sure any of those people right now are future leaders of the Tory party, and I see Rishi Sunak himself fighting this now till the very end, of course. And the reason I see that is because I don't think we've seen enough scrutiny of the Labour's party's policies yet. Now, they look like they've got a home run. I'm not sure they have got a home run, but there's quite a lot going on. What do you make of this, Adam?
I think there should be a far more significant headline, and that is gymnast born with no legs and massive feet.
That's how it looks, doesn't it?
It does.
Adam, sticking to this, I mean, this is kind of a sort of make or break conference, really, for the Tories. I mean, this is Rishi coming in and going, guys, let me lead you to the next election and I'm going to win. But
I'll be honest with you, it took me so long to come up with the gymnast gag, I haven't read the other story.
That's why you're here, Adam. You're right, though. You was quite facetious, and there are a number of people jostling for position. But this happens every time there's a party conference. It happens at every party conference, unless they're entirely united, which most parties aren't. The Labour Party aren't either. But Rishi is under a lot of pressure now. And, of course, I am a betting man, and I would bet against him winning the next general election. That's starting to change slightly, though. The winds are changing.
Yes, but is it going to change
Not
enough?
for me, it's not.
And also, we're going to see some more stories that might affect that later. There is another story, also in The Guardian. Verbal abuse damaging to children, say experts. This is quite an interesting, wasn't it? I mean, look, you explain it first, if you don't mind.
So this story is about parents who shout at their children or call them stupid, sort of leaving their offspring at greater risk of self-harm. Now, I guess there is a correlation between those two things. I don't know if it's a greater risk. The reason I say that, I'm not condoning that type of behaviour towards children, by the way, but you imagine that was the sort of way parents were towards children for generations. And self-harm, I don't know if it's... It seems that in recent times, self-harm seems to have exploded in some way, but during a time where parents aren't really shouting at kids in the same way they would have done in previous generations. So I'm not sure the correlation stacks up.
We've all got children, though.
Yes.
It's very hard to not shout at your children, particularly yours, Adam, because they're so annoying.
I mean, you surely should never call your child stupid. You could say that was stupid, but not you're stupid, apart from the stupid one.
My daughter has called me stupid. What should I do about that?
It's the other way around.
Oh, OK, cool.
Yeah, no.
No, but isn't it obvious you don't call a child stupid?
No, I think it is obvious, Adam, but not to everyone.
Right.
But it seems obvious, yeah, but exactly.
Not to the stupid parents, that's the problem. And the irony is they're correct.
Yeah, and unfortunately then it continues that cycle. But, yes, there are certain things here that you wouldn't... You know, it's very hard for any parent to not lose their temper. But this is... it's a tough one because, of course, it's going to make that impact. And I'm sure we're three comics. I'm sure we were traumatised by our parents to a degree, from like even things that innocuous things that they might not even remember saying, they tend to stick with you.
It's not so much the shouting. I once watched my dad finish a yoghurt with his tongue, and that affected me very deeply. So
did he have to squeeze it to get the bottom to go up?
I don't know what he was doing. All I know is I need to get him a spoon for Christmas.
Right, let's do the front page of the Daily Mail, Adam.
OK, mobile phones ban in schools, and the Educational Secretary to announce dramatic intervention today to the relief of millions of parents and teachers. The main relief for a parent is they don't have to buy their kid a phone now. What a relief. This, I think, is a great idea because it's not just in lessons, it's in break time, because we used to run around and play and all sorts of stuff, and now just doing that the whole time. It's good for exercise, it's good for loads of things. They're going to say it's going to create stopping bullying, but let's be honest, bullying will happen in other forms. If anything, people can be more like a bully because they're not distracted by their phone. Like cyberbullying, bullying existed before cyberbullying. It was just called bullying. So I don't think it's going to stop bullying. It's going to stop it happening all through break and all through lessons, but it's not going to stop it happening.
But I mean, it's not just about bullying, is it, Paul? It's about the distraction. It's about how it affects their brains.
Yeah, it's multifaceted, this, actually. I mean, we're all of the same generation. There was no concept of mobile telephones when we were at school. We didn't have that level of distraction. So we can't quite put ourselves in that position. But we do know they're a huge distraction. There's another side to this, really. It's about fitting in. I mean, I've got a 14-year-old. I know you've got a 14-year-old as well, Josh. And whether we like it or not, and whether we'd like to say no, fitting in and having the right things to fit in is relatively important in the sense that if you don't, then you are targeted, and just by the sheer nature of children. However, that's a bit off-piste because this is about mobile telephones during a lesson. And in my daughter's school, they are banned during lesson. I'm sure that's not something that's mandated from central government at the moment, or it is as of tomorrow, I think, or something. However, it's policed locally at the school, and to some success. I wouldn't say it was...
Yeah, well, this seems like an easy win for the Tories to sort of... I don't think there's many people who are going to be like, no, we should allow our children on their phones during school time, so it's a bit obvious.
You know what they'll have? They'll have 2 tin cans with a string between them instead, and then they'll get kids with the Heinz beans will bully the kids with the Asda beans.
Yeah.
And the Asda will be the equivalent of Android, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There's always reason to bully someone, isn't there?
Yeah! Right, it's Monday's Times now, Paul. What are they leading with?
Doctor handed £7,900 to cover 1 strike shift. Now, that is a lot of money. 8 grand is a lot of money. I'd probably want more than 8 grand to deal with the general public, particularly when they're ill, because if you've ever been in a hospital, particularly A&E, where there is a lot of stress going on, for some reason it brings the worst out in people. It very rarely brings the worst out in the medical staff, I have to say, in my experience.
People are sick. I mean,
but they are sick. So, OK, it's justifiable, let's say. We should abuse all doctors. However, I would say that that's not what we just...
No, I'm not saying
definitely not what Josh was saying.
Doctors.
Just some of them.
Just the ones getting £7,900.
It's a lot of money, and it seems... But at the end of the day, that's what consultancy is all about, is to fill the gaps that you can't fill. And if you've got doctors striking, this is the monetary cost.
But unfortunately, this monetary cost isn't just during strikes. It's because of understaffing. There's gaps in the... it's also the nurses that, when they bring in outside nurses, they're not getting 7,900, but they get considerably more than I know that because my mother-in-law's a nurse, and that's where she pays for the Christmas presents for all the kids.
Couldn't they just get the army to do the job instead, like they do with other jobs?
I don't... Good luck with that, just never get sick. There is another story here. Want to win over your boss, praise your colleagues. And I just want to say you're both doing a fantastic job.
Well, Josh, you are marvellously and splendidly good-looking, sir. Yes.
Adam, you want to say anything?
I'd just like to tell you that the proper boss in the sound desk over there, you're doing a great job.
Fair enough. All right, let's finish on the Sun then. Adam, what's going on there?
Russian hackers attacked royals. So basically there's some hackers in Russia that have attacked the royals. They've claimed to have gone onto their website. What's interesting is they've come forward and said it's us, which I thought the whole point of hacking was no one knows it's you, right? But anyway, Kill Milk, the perpetrated leader of the Russian... basically, the group's called Killnet. So Kill Milk, Killnet, and their favourite film's probably Kill Bill. And they basically claimed in a Telegraph post that they were behind the takedown, but the royals have said it didn't happen. So it's really weird. Normally someone goes, I've been hacked. Everyone goes, oh, it wasn't me. Now they're going, we hacked you. They're going, no, you didn't. It's quite weird, isn't it?
Yes, it is weird, because I'm not sure what they achieved by it. It's hardly war games, is it?
It's vital infrastructure. If you can't get onto the royal website, you can't find out who's the 5th in line.
I've never been on the royal website. I consider myself a royalist as well.
Oh, my gosh. You've got a lot of hours of pleasure.
Do you know what would be good if you hacked the royal website and all you did, you had power to everything, just made Prince Charles' ears a tiny bit bigger. I'm sure it's... And as you get older, your ears grow. They go, maybe he's just got...
Those Russians showing us.
Just subtle thing, or just put a mole on someone that isn't normally there.
Well, I think that actually the royal family have done pretty well at seeing how Russians have treated their royalty in the past. I think crashing the website. Maybe that's what they should have done instead to go for it. All right, that's the front pages taken care of. Join us in a moment for Slacker Councils. Braveman takes on the celebs and Tory MPs on the dole. See you then.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GBNews,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30am.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
And Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, joined by Paul, who's booked Leo Kurtz and Stephen Allen Cox, and Adam, soon to be booked by Paul Bloom. Right, first up, Paul, is Monday's Express. It seems like Suella got some more people on her list for Rwanda here.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, this is... so let me just give you the headlines and we'll discuss it. Suella Braverman launches attack on pampered, out-of-touch celebrity. So the Home Secretary has called out celebs who have condemned her stance on immigration. So this, of course, is following Braverman's speech in the US earlier in the week, where she said that multiculturalism isn't working. So what we're dealing with here is an opinion, and to my money, that's a valid opinion. It's either working or it's not. And if it's not working and we need to do something about it, openly admitting it's not working would be the first step. And she wouldn't be the first person to have said this. A number of people have said this. A number of sort of centre-left European leaders like Angela Merkel have said this in the past. Multiculturalism is a multifaceted, huge issue for any country. What you're doing, even if you take a classroom of children and you mix in people of different abilities, you have to manage that, irrespective of culture.
I mean, let's stop talking about your daughter. Yes, I mean, there is an issue, but it's also how people define multiculturalism. What we're really talking about is integration. There are other things that she said, arguably, that people got very upset about. Even Tories, the LGBT Tories got very upset about it. But let's talk about the issue of celebrities. Obviously, anyone has the right to comment. Yep. That's fine. Adam, do you think that they at all have a role to play using their profiles to make comments?
I think it's beautiful that Elton John comes forward. Elton John's loved. He's not doing it to make people like him. He's already loved. And by the way, I have a solution. What you need to do is remove all non-white people from England, so racists have got to find a new reason to be unhappy.
OK,
yeah.
Very good.
The point is that I don't think... The word virtue signalling, we've all seen people virtue signalling, and you can see it in their eyes. They go, yeah, I think this. And you go, this is about you. You want to look good. Yeah. When someone thinks something is causing hatred and they're powerful, they can say, this is causing hatred, I'm Elton John and listen to me. He has that voice. I think it's beautiful. Virtue signalling, I think you can always spot the difference between virtue signalling and someone has a very honest point to make. I'll give you an example of virtue signalling. I got chatting to a girl the other day. She had a T-shirt on that said, make love, not war. I tried it on with her, and you should have seen the fight she put up.
I mean, That's a very honourable bunch of points you made there, and the difference I think is that it's easy for these celebs to make. I thoroughly believe that Elton John believes everything he says, along with all these other people, but they haven't got to fix the problem. And also, Suella Braverman is on the other side of that argument, saying almost the polar opposite, but just as valid. So I think that we have a problem with multiculturalism across the world, where we've sold it as the paradise that we all should be seeking, but we have never really admitted what the problems are.
No, yeah, I mean, and also the other things that she made comments about how there are migrants gaming the system. That's just a fact. That has been proved now. Now, that doesn't mean all asylum seekers are doing that by any means, but there are certain gaps or holes within the system that people are exploiting. As you say, calling these things out isn't the same as necessarily spreading hatred or whatnot. But it's interesting that people will listen to celebrities, the ones that they agree with. Whether you're on the left or the right or whatever, people who will say, stop listening to celebrities, they're all idiots or whatever. But as soon as you get a celebrity who agrees with you, you're he's telling the truth or she's telling the truth. So we're all hypocrites to a degree.
Is it not clear that if it wasn't for multiculturalism, she wouldn't have a job in the first place, because she is a result of multiculturalism? So she should be grateful for multiculturalism, surely.
This is very deep, Adam.
No, it's not deep. It's very simple. It's straightforward.
I think it's, and I also think it's a basic foundation of the argument. You're absolutely right. Without it, she wouldn't be there. I guess my point is we're in that position, and probably the better for it. However, there are problems with it. How do we tackle it without calling everyone a racist who says it's a problem?
I think my point is that we're moving on. Monday's Telegraph next.
1 minute.
OK.
The answer is education. Simple as that.
Always. Monday's Telegraph next. Adam, maybe some of these people might want to buy a book, your copy of the book. How to be a stand-up comedian.
Well,
there we go.
Funny you mention it. I have a bestseller book out.
Really?
I have a bestseller book out
This
called
is an incredible coincidence.
Finding Your Comic Genius.
You just happen to have it on you.
Yes, it's the incredible coincidence is I haven't had this on me for the previous 3 times I'm here, so thank you. But yeah, I have a best-selling book out called Finding Your Comic Genius, and it teaches you to be a better comedian.
And why would the people in this story possibly need a new job?
Because Tory MPs with a majority of 8,000 or less might want to get another job. Apparently, an expert, Dr. Frank Lunn, you can tell he's good.
Yeah, anybody.
No one called Luntz isn't good at their job.
Dr. Luntz.
You don't get Luntz. Dr. Frank Luntz was fired for not being good. You never hear that. But and basically, he's an American political strategist, and he suggests that 1/3 of politicians are going to lose their seat.
Tory MPs, he's talking
Tory MPs, sorry, specifically. If you lose your seat, just go to IKEA, get a new one. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's how it works.
I think I might need to read this book.
Former best-selling book there.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly Dr. Luntz knows his stuff, but I don't think he's been watching, because he suggests here that these Tory MPs with a majority of 8,000 or less should look for another job. They've already got 2 or 3 other jobs. That's what's been happening. And they've got shares in things like Shell.
Look, GB News is full.
Oh, yeah.
How many Tory MPs are sort of seeing this is their life raft?
There's no room on headliners, that's for sure.
But, I mean, there are issues. I mean, there are committees that deal with these kind of issues, because when people do lose their jobs, and regardless of how it goes, there will be MPs who are going to lose their jobs, there are questions about where they do work next in terms of the context that they've made being in government, if they're allowed to sort of utilise that knowledge and work for companies that they will sort of have this unfair advantage with. And there are rules in place for that, and how you have to take a certain number of years off, and people say you should never be able to go to work in these systems. But we are going to see a very... already a lot of Tory MPs, not a lot, but a few Tory MPs have just said, I'm not going to fight the next election. They've sort of seen which way the wind's blowing, and we are probably going to see a lot of people leaving new jobs.
And I know it's easy to vilify MPs of all colour.
Yeah, but let's go. No, joking.
However, one thing I would say is, if you're just a one-term MP and you've been on 80 grand a year, which of course the UK is a lot of money, but you don't have a job after that, and you've spent all of that money, you are effectively redundant, and it could be an issue for some people.
Yeah, I feel really sorry for them. Moving on to the Eye. And how are those 5 pledges working out for the real Rishi, Paul?
Absolutely.
The real Rishi.
The real Rishi.
We're finally seeing that guy.
So, yes, a quarter of population now on the NHS waiting list.
Ouch.
A poll suggests in a warning to Rishi Sunak. So the Prime Minister has promised to bring down waiting lists by the time the next general election happens. Of course, he's going to have to. I think the biggest victim of the COVID pandemic has been the service that the NHS have been able to provide. I think we have, I can't speak for us all actually, I know people that have been through cancer treatment in the last year or so, and when you get into the system works very well. But the front end of the system, I think we've seen a massive decline in my lifetime at the front end of the NHS, and a huge sort of exponential decline since the pandemic, because the pandemic sort of put this huge wall between us and GPs in particular, where, you know, you have to see a pandemic, you have to see a paramedic.
Yeah, you've got to get pots and pans and bang them before they... Please come and help me!
There's some lady called Sharon who wants to know why you're back with the same war issue before you can get anywhere near a doctor. And I think at the front end of the NHS we've got a huge problem. The fact that this says in the iNews that there's a quarter of Great Britain on the waiting list, I think it's a little bit of a stretch, because it's a quarter of people that were asked and they said they've been waiting or their experience
it's a very damning headline. Certainly, they vowed to bring it down, and actually waiting lists have gone up. And yes, I agree with you. The pandemic obviously has played a part. Also, Adam, arguably strikes. But this could also be seen as a sort of systematic failure of this government. These are issues. These are problems that are set up years in advance by lack of investment to get to the point where we're in now, where there's just not enough of a system in place to deal with the numbers of people in this country.
I think the biggest worry is that 1 in 4 people are ill.
Yes.
That's the biggest worry.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, we could probably make this waiting list shorter just by telling anyone over 70 they're not allowed to talk about what else is wrong with them when they leave the doctor.
That's what it is.
I've seen them. They're going, and another in my bag, and and I'm like, just get out, I'm waiting next. But people are too polite. We need ruder doctors. That's what we need.
Just hanging out at the GP, just going, look at these guys, look at these guns.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. My book, How to Be a Better GP by
quite terrifying.
Adam Bloom.
A story in the Express now, Adam, and like the headmaster in Back to the Future, Gove is getting tough on those slackers. Do you get that reference, Adam?
No.
OK, great. We're glad I...
Perhaps we could go back in time and you do it again.
It won't work.
So, Michael Gove vows to ban slacker councils for bringing in a 4-day week. Now, I didn't know about this until like an hour ago, because I only work a 4-day week, so I don't read the papers. But it seems a bit much that, you know, people work at least 5 days a week, the average person, and then they're paying the council tax, and the people they're paying it to are doing a 4-day week.
You're talking to two people who work about 14 minutes a week normally? Is that right?
Sometimes I'll do 20.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty much it. But I think that I don't see why that should ever be the case, 4-day week. Who decided, I know what we're going to do, we're doing a 4-day week?
Well, there have been studies that have been carried out around the world that show that having this 4-day week actually makes people more productive. Now, then it turns out that in Cambridge, where they've been carrying out this study, it seems like one of the leaders of the council might have fudged some data. I've read that hasn't necessarily been proven, to make it fit that. But there's a lot of evidence elsewhere that this might be a good thing. Isn't it productivity that's important, Paul?
As long as everyone has a 4-day week.
Well, this is... OK, so my point on this would be that we can separate these two issues. We can separate a number of things here. People who are working 4 days a week aren't slacking. The idea of a 4-day a week works really well in some instances, but if you're running public services that people need access to, they probably can't be 4 days a week. The way it can be 4 days a week is if you run 2 shifts of 4 days a week, well, one of the days is overlapped, and over the 7 days, there's complete cover and there's double cover on one day. So there are a number of things here that have been conflated to make this an interesting story for us to read. But I think if you take them on their own merit, a 4-day a week works very well for a number of businesses. If you're inputting data into an Excel spreadsheet all week long, and you can compress that into 4 days, and your output's equal or better, then why not do it?
Absolutely. And the other thing that part of the story is that Gove has been criticised really for deflecting on his own failures in terms of trying to bring through legislation to help renters, even like the land laws that are now being put to the side that would have helped people who have freeholds or don't have freeholds and whatnot. So this seems like an easy sort of win, like he can just sort of, appeal to the base. Oh, yeah, those freeloaders, we're going to shut them down, as opposed to actually doing his job, really.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't see this as anything more than an easy target.
Yes, indeed. All right, well...
I love the idea, actually, because that's one on, one off, one on, one off as well. So let's say street sweepers, rather than doing 5 days in a row and go, oh, God, this is hard work. Yeah. There's more rubbish to sweep up, admittedly, but they'll enjoy it more because they've actually had a day off. So on, off, on, off, on, off. Yeah, prostitutes, I wouldn't want to be there.
Don't know what you're talking about. Taking us to the halfway point is the iNews. And Paul, does this mean my Uber Eats will be cold when I get home tonight?
It might well be if you will.
By the way, other good delivery services are available. But I got a discount on that one. So
yeah, and I'm available for discounts also. Thank you. Ban on single-use plastic cutlery, food containers and other items came into force in England on Sunday, which, if you're watching today, is now. If you're watching tomorrow, is yesterday. The ban, which applies to all businesses, including takeaways, food vendors, hospitality firms and retailers, restricts the sale of certain plastic products. So I think they do. Again, there's a bit of conflation in this story where climate change creeps its way in. Now, I think you can separate from climate change. I think you know, keep Britain tidy was a great slogan throughout the 70s and 80s, and this, for me, is what this is about. Non-biodegradable products. We might as well get rid of them, because if they just sit in landfill or fill up the streams or whatever, that's bad.
And killing animals. I mean, do you agree with that, Adam? Do you think there's anything wrong with this? Is there a downside to this?
I think we should just eat with our hands and then chop our hands off and get them recycled. No, it makes sense. We've all used plastic stuff, and it just like sometimes you don't even use, like you stir a coffee and it's gone. And it's just like, and then you think the millions of people doing that. I think this can't. I use my glasses. I literally do this with a coffee now.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Well, that is disgusting.
Do you know what? Every time I do it, I feel slightly ashamed. You know this guilty pleasure. You go, "Ugh, this is wrong, right?"
I was also wondering why you smell. That's in part 2, but coming up is part 3 with Harry Potter betrayers diabetic women, actually, and cancelled stars making the big bucks. I need to get cancelled. See you in a sec.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners and straight into Monday's Guardian. And Adam, you think the one place that wouldn't be racist, apart from the Labour Party, would be the EHRC.
So former race lead sues EHRC for race discrimination, and they can't accuse them of virtue signalling because they're not white. Fair point? Well, maybe not.
That was an Adam Bloom verify there.
Distraction. Now, a former staff of the Equity and Human Rights Commission is suing the watchdog, alleging race discrimination and unfair dismissal at an employment tribunal this week. Now, I'm going to try and pronounce the name. Preeti Katrika. Any goes at that one?
Kathrika. Yeah. Kathricha?
Paprika.
Yeah.
A senior... Let me do it again. Preeti Katrika.
All right, we've all been cancelled now. It's all over for us.
Well, actually, I actually Googled it. Oh, yeah. And that's what Steve Jobs said. And you can't say he's racist because he's dead.
OK.
But I actually Googled... if you're listening, I really, really tried to get this right, and I Googled your name. Anyway...
It's still racist, mate.
She claims she was vilified, silenced and punished for doing her job by speaking up about race.
Which is her job, to speak up about race. This is an interesting story, Paul, because it reads to me that she was basically... Her job is to call out racism, and she called it out, or tried to call it out, in various organisations and say that the police are institutionally racist and higher education and all these different things. And they turned around and said, yeah, nah. And then she was like, well, you're racist. And that feels like the story to me.
It is the story. I think that's a great synopsis. I mean, of course it's happening at the EHRC. It's the same old adage, isn't it, a little bit? If someone's overly zealously telling you that they're a male feminist, probably be wary. If someone's continually telling you they're a race ally, probably be wary. And the Equality and Human Rights Commission is going to be one of those places because it's going to be overly scrutinised the whole time. One thing I do find interesting about this story's in The Guardian, and I think this is a good piece of journalism from The Guardian, which is something I don't say very often, in the sense that you wouldn't expect them to call this stuff out. This is right in their sort of the centre...
Well, I don't know if they're calling it out. I would argue there seems like they're kind of agreeing with her. They also needlessly... Well, they bring up Kishwal Faulkner, who is the head at the moment, and these claims against her about bullying and harassment, which arguably are kind of muddying the water over the trans issue, have been brought up to kind of discredit her. And there's government ministers saying that she shouldn't be investigated at all because the claims are spurious. So anyway, I'm just saying that The Guardian seems to have, as all newspapers do, their own agenda. And it definitely feels like it's coming out in this article.
What I worry about this... Sorry, Adam, if you were going to come in there. What I do worry about this...
No, he's terrified that we're going to go back to him.
Is the whole... what it does is it highlights the whole thing is probably quite performative. So the whole thing, the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, is probably quite performative.
Well, they've got a job to do. And, I wouldn't say it's performative. I mean, they set up, they have a job, they have worked in the past in terms of they found the Labour Party guilty of discriminating against Jews, of breaking the law. It's interesting how Preeti Katrika, how she's come in and said that they shouldn't have done that. It was a political decision to investigate Labour. Now, obviously, I'm an invested interest in this as a Jew, and you know, cranks are going to absolutely love this. This is their narrative they've been trying to sort of spread all along.
I'm fully aware of that as you say these things. And I agree with a lot of the things they said about Jeremy Corbyn. There's nothing... In fact, I agree with everything they said.
Yeah, but you still won't book me. Right, friend of headliners, Graham Linehan, letting it rip in the Telegraph next, Paul.
Harry Potter stars betrayed J.K. Rowling over trans row. Graham, a friend of...
And I'd like to be impartial about this story. They did!
Yes, they did. I genuinely, I've never made more notes about a story...
I can see.
...than I have about... this one.
You've also drawn a lot of willies.
That's my hieroglyphs.
And then chop them off.
I'm starting to wonder if the J.K. Rowling thing is one of the biggest Mandela effects we've ever seen. No matter how hard I look or ask, I cannot find anything where J.K. Rowling has actually been transphobic.
It's madness.
Because she gave all of them $1 million each to shut up.
Yeah, well, I just cannot find it.
No.
And the fact that they've thrown her under the bus for this, to me, is an absolute disgrace.
Death threats, rape threats, and yet they're not supporting her and saying, "Oh, this is terrible." She has made their entire lives, their careers.
You know, at no point has she done anything that is exclusionary. The only thing she has ever done is make a clear line, a distinction between a trans woman and a woman. And I think that is perfectly acceptable. I don't think that is transphobic. And I find this whole thing abhorrent. I can't believe we've got this far and people are still saying that J.K. Rowling is transphobic.
Well, I mean, on the weekend, Adam, look, we're all comics, we're all mates on Facebook as well, and you see these comments, and you see people going, "Oh my God, this is disgusting." And there were people talking about this article, people I know, people we worked with, and they're coming out how disgusting she is. And I just said, please, again, as alluding to what you say, just quote me one direct quote from J.K. Rowling that is transphobic. And they can never do it. I know this is somewhat new to you. Welcome to Headliners.
I've got one opinion on this.
OK, let's hear it.
Oh, delicious.
Absolutely
delicious.
I've got water in my glass now.
Before we go ahead off on this, Paul, is this coming from them? Is this coming from their publicists? This is what we've seen time and time again. Certain people have poked their head up on the gender debate, Bette Midler and various people, and then like a day later, it's like they'll put out this apology and whatnot. And is it just cowardice? You could excuse them that they're young, they want to continue their careers. Is there some...
OK,
can we
it is cowardice, but it's shrewd cowardice. And the distinction you made is an intelligent one because, their publicists, their agents are protecting the future of those actors because they know in this current climate of absolute bonkers land that if they were to come out and say, no, actually, I'm very thankful to J.K. Rowling and she's entitled to her views, they would be penalised.
Well, I would... The final point on this is I will argue that they are protecting their short-term future because when... more and more stuff is revealed, and certain like the charity Mermaids, and you have certain other actors supporting them. And when more and more stuff, they have had a paedophile on their board, I believe, and they're being investigated now by the Charity Commission. So. Yes, they're protecting them, but as more and more stuff comes out, I think in the long term it's going to massively backfire. Anyway, Times Now, which has an interesting story on diabetes being sexist, Adam.
Yes, it is a very sexist thing. No, it's quite a serious story, actually. Doctors used to diagnosing men may not spot 35,000 women with diabetes. Basically, the method they're using can actually miss out some women with diabetes, which can cause death. So it's a very serious topic. Just for a second, let's be serious. Thousands of women may be missing out on the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes because the threshold are geared towards men. This is what research suggests. So this isn't male doctors. This is just doctors diagnosing men. So there's basically women falling under the radar.
Yes, because men and women are biologically different. But no, I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is unfortunately. You have scientists, you have biologists, you have doctors out there who are saying no, who are saying it's a spectrum and there's not these differences. The whole point is acknowledge these differences. And there's a book, Invisible Women. It's a fantastic book, and it's got lots of examples like this. We also have things like heart attacks and whatnot, where in a world that's set up for men, there are these gaps and they need to be dealt with. I think the question, before we very quickly move on, is it sexist or is it just an oversight that now needs to be rectified, Paul?
The last one, absolutely.
Okay, there we go. Right, let's move on to the last lead. We have the Times in the section. And is this us cashing in, Adam?
Well, Katie Hopkins?
Yeah.
Katie Hopkins, from Katie Hopkins to Joe Rogan, the cancelled stars cashing in. I think that, first of all, Katie Hopkins has just started doing stand-up comedy, having...
Read your book.
Look, first things first, OK? When someone decides they're just going to be a comedian overnight, it's just such an insult to an art form. I watched a clip of her, and it was diabolical. It would be like me locking myself in a dark room for an hour, thinking horrible thoughts and thinking it instantly makes me a vile bigot.
Which is just not like that. We have to... Yeah, no, of course. But, so what you're trying to say is that you would like a review for your book from her.
I'd say you don't think you're a comedian just because you get up on stage.
OK, I mean, what do you think about this? But it's an interesting article in Times. Everybody always says, oh, no, that people haven't been cancelled. But the people that they're including within all of this, Joe Rogan, the most popular podcast in the UK. You've got Jordan Peterson, like, he's like some hate figure. It is ridiculous, isn't it?
Of course it's ridiculous. And, of course, people want to see it. People want rock and roll. They don't want capitulation and conformity. And that's what you get if you stay within the boundaries.
OK, let's move out of the boundaries. That's it for this section. Time for the silly section to go. We've got ash spreaders, shadow work and Jedi waiters. You will not want to miss it. Please come back. Is that too needy?
Not at all.
OK.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners. And kicking us off is the Express poll, and it seems like eco-warriors don't like mourners getting in on their throwing powder antics. Are you happy, Adam? Are you happy?
Thank you so much.
Absolutely zero chaos here at Headliners, people. So, eco-warriors telling grieving Brits to stop spreading ashes on UK beauty spots. Now, the more you read about this, the more you understand that it's specifically a group of mountaineers that are saying you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
So, I've never heard a mountain saying, please climb on me. So if we said to mountaineers, no longer climb mountains because it's no good for the mountain, they'd be upset. I think, quite controversially, you should be able to spread your ashes wherever you like. They're biodegradable. I mean, you can't just wander...
Yeah, but what they're saying here, though, Adam, is actually too much of they have phosphate in them and various chemicals that actually can... If there are too many ashes put in one spot, it can actually damage the environment. And they're saying do it lower down the hill.
That's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah? Was your dad cremated, or...?
My dad was buried. Thanks for bringing him up.
OK, yeah, that's right. I just thought... Be funny now, finding your comic genius.
My dad was buried last year, and, in the Jewish faith, the men have to fill in the grave with shovels themselves, and I was really dreading that. But when it happened, it wasn't that bad because I'm quite competitive.
And also, you're
competing with your siblings and your uncles.
Yeah. Well, no, my nephew and my brother-in-law. But
and also, you're the muscliest.
It was still emotional. I came second. What's my point? I think maybe we should get rid of ashes in a way that's suitable to someone's job or hobbies. So if you like Class A drugs, the family can snort you. And if you like indoor games, they can put you in an Etch-a-Sketch.
Very nice. I was personally thinking what they could do is it could be sort of like The Great Escape, where you do it out of your pockets, walking. See how that works out.
Oh, that's great.
Let's look at the mirror, and Paul, perhaps famous people aren't totally useless.
Not all of them. Michael Sheen among stars to demand Rishi Sunak give UK an extra bank holiday. So public figures, including the Archbishop of Canterbury and actor Michael Sheen, have called for a thank holiday, an extra day off for people to connect with each other and volunteer. So I was right with this right until the very last sentence, where I'd get a day off, great. But when I've got that day off, it's stipulated that I've got to connect with people. Oh, no. Oh my goodness. Or volunteer. I don't want to volunteer. I'll work 9 days a week.
Don't we have a holiday like this, Adam? It's called Sunday.
And we're here.
Yeah. And also this thank day thing. This is properly cringe. I mean, I know the Archbishop of Canterbury, this is his vibe. But this is pathetic. This is never going to happen, surely.
I'll be honest with you. I was reading the next story and I got so absorbed in it, I forgot to listen.
Let me explain how the format works.
Well, in a minute, you'll see the irony of what happened. Isn't it?
Okay.
Do you think we should have another bank holiday? And if so, do you think we should volunteer if we're doing it?
I think there should be a charitable. It's about being charitable, right?
No, it's just about having a day off. Adam,
no, wait a minute. OK, 1 day a year where everyone does something nice for somebody, that'd be amazing.
We should do that
people
every
be
day,
treated better. No, it's an amazing idea.
OK, fine. Adam, The Guardian has a story now to win back its readers.
Well, here is the irony. This is a news story, America's new print-only newspaper. Basically, this will be come out 6 times a year. It's $8.50, but the idea is people read slower when they're reading off a page. They're not distracted by things plopping up. You don't have the bright light hurting your eyes. And the irony is that I was enjoying reading that on paper so much that I didn't listen to you talking.
That is deeply ironic. I mean, this is
talking of things on paper, there's a very good example.
Really?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's Seamus, I'm going to love to see... You're going to sell at least 4 copies today. Well, I mean, this is part of the lo-fi movement, isn't it? I mean, this is an interesting idea, and as Adam says, it's getting away from the distraction of screens.
I like it, and I like the lo-fi movement. It's something I can get into. I really genuinely do. I have no issue. I'm not a technophobe. You've got just stick phobe at the end of everything now, basically. But I'm not a technophobe, and I enjoy technology. We've had a discussion here behind the scenes a number of times. Could we have these stories on iPads, for instance?
Which I think is a stupid idea.
And yeah, well, I think I agree with you. I much prefer... I love this sentence
I just remembered that the producer is the one who had the... Sorry, producer.
so I think... I love this sentence here. It says, the printed page is an immersive experience without constant distractions or the spectre of other people's responses on social media, i.e. comments.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. That seems like a naive time that's in the distant past now. And there's nothing like reading a book or the newspaper to just separate yourself in the real world.
Absolutely, and the fact is it's been a huge success. The first edition, I believe, sold out pretty much straight away. So this could be a sign of things to come, which is, I think, is a good idea.
So.
Yeah.
I was distracted. I got a text. Can I say, think of the amount of times you've gone to Google something important or send an email and then something's popped up. You've done that and then forgot to do the thing.
Right.
Every day.
Yeah. Finally, it's the Mail, and Paul, these aren't the gratuities you're looking for.
No, how waiters use Jedi mind trick used by the FBI to get you to pay a bigger tip. So essentially, there's a couple of things that's going on here. They are using positive reinforcement, so things like great choice, no problem, and coming right up when you're dealing with.
It sounds so annoyingly American there.
It does indeed. And mirroring, which is something I wasn't necessarily aware of, which is just literally repeating back what they said to you.
It's literally repeating back, isn't it, Adam, what they said to you?
I might try that. Dr. Girl, can I get you a drink? No, go away. No, go away. This isn't a problem.
You're the one that Catherine Ryan was talking about.
This doesn't really affect us in England because people put 12.5% service charge on anyway for your convenience. Oh, how convenient, especially since I've got to bring the family abacus with me. Yeah. But it's not a problem. By the way, the service charge-wise in England, if you want it taken off because you've had really bad service, the stigma's attached to you. Well, if you've had bad service, the stigma should be attached to the waiting staff who've actually treated you badly, but it isn't. It's like, oh, look at that person. My 11-year-old said the other day, why are they called waiters when we do the waiting? Isn't that lovely?
It is lovely. Out of the mouths of babes, eh?
Yeah, I mean, so this mirroring thing, it's an interesting idea, and it's had a lot of work, and they've had different waiters. But this is, like you say, predominantly an American situation where they rely on their tips, or it's not necessarily as low a paid job as it can be over here.
I think we do it to some degree. You know, if you're an affable person, which we all are, you know, what you do is you do mirror the person you're speaking to because you want them to be on equal status to you. I'm just doing hand movements. I'm saying things like equal status.
You're doing all these
as a result, I'm empowering us both, Josh.
Well, mirroring, and now I'm going to mirror Adam.
What, a Jew with glasses?
That's pretty slightly...
And a beard. And not much hair. Oh, my God.
My God, it's like we're twins. We're brothers. Anyway, lovely. Mirror, right. Well, yeah, TikTok, there you go. Thank you again for helping increase my tips when this job is over. Right, show's nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. We have the Daily Mail, mobile phones ban in schools. The Times, doctor handed £7,900 to cover one strike shift. Guardian, Tory factions threaten to wreck Sunak's conference. Mirror, do the right thing, PM. Express, Hunt vows to turn the screw on Workshire. And finally, the Daily Star, our nuts are in crisis. Those are your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Paul Cox and Adam Bloom, who I don't know if you know, but he's got a book out. Simon Evans will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Paul Cox and Nick Dixon. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Thank you for joining us. Good night or good morning. Thank you.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News. Britain's news channel.
I'm Lisa Hartle in the GB Newsroom. A promise to increase efforts to stop illegal migrants from entering the country has been made at the Conservative Party conference. That's as the latest figures show more than 537 people were intercepted trying to cross the